Ever looked at something your friend had, whether it be as small as a piece of clothing, a car, or even abstract as their career, and feel a sense of jealousy? This feeling isn't foreign to us, especially living in today's society. However, your background and environment can have a lot to do with how you interpret this feeling. Growing up, specifically in a Catholic and faith-based community, it was often taught to me that this feeling of jealousy is not beneficial in any way. However, we often still need more than just a teaching. We need a guide. The church offers this in the 10th commandment. Thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's goods. Through this commandment, God tells us that coveting others' goods harms not only us, but others as well. The commandment of thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's goods guides us to a path of gratitude, individuality, and a positive mindset. Living in America, we are blessed to be surrounded by so much. There is an abundance of clothes, food, healthcare, transportation, and education. We are blessed enough to have so many cultures, backgrounds, and resources for a better future that so many places around the world don't have. With all these things, the feeling of gratitude shouldn't be so foreign, right? Sadly, we live in a culture where we are constantly striving for bigger and better. This isn't necessarily a bad thing, but with it often comes a sense of jealousy for what we don't have. Gratitude is often overpowered by this feeling, and we often forget to reflect on the blessings we have, but rather what others have that we ourselves are missing. Personally, growing up, I was given many privileges that I often took for granted. I would find myself yearning for what my friends had, even though I already had more than enough. Looking back, it was never anything too crazy. It was usually toys or weird things like the newest glow-in-the-dark Razor scooter that all my friends had that I desperately wanted. This feeling was never a good one, and my parents would often tell me that I already had more than enough toys or whatever I wanted during the time. Sometimes I would listen to them, but other times I would beg and beg them until I got what I wanted. Now, as a teenager, this feeling of jealousy has built up over time. My jealousy has moved from the toys from my childhood, but has progressed into bigger things like a car, expensive clothes, and even abstract things like a boyfriend or even a better friend group. I would often find myself in a dark place where I don't see the positive in my life, but rather gloom on what I don't have. I would carefully observe others and see what they have that I might lack. I know I'm not alone in this, since we all often see how happy these things might make someone feel and quietly yearn for it ourselves. This isn't always a bad thing, but when this motivation for better turns into blind jealousy, is when problems arise. On the bright side, we can find a place of gratitude through faith. In a recent encyclical, Pope Francis states, "Rather than a problem to be solved, our world is a joyful mystery to be contemplated with gladness and praise." He teaches us that even though we can see what we don't have as a problem, it doesn't always need to be solved. Instead, we can be grateful for what God has already given us. We can use the 10th commandment to serve as a reminder to not covet thy neighbor's goods. We can use the saints and figures like Pope Francis to inspire our lives with gratitude. We can also ask ourselves the question of, how am I going to inspire others to follow the 10th commandment? It can be hard, but little by little, we can change our own life and maybe even others. The 10th commandment can also connect us more to ourselves and who we are as individuals. When we find ourselves coveting for what we don't have, we can lose a sense of who we are. We are all made in God's image, which makes us all unique in every way. Archbishop Gregory testifies, saying, "To be Catholic, one need not to abandon one's individuality." This is easy to forget when we are surrounded by so many superficial images that social media portrays. We see celebrities such as the Kardashians, all following a single trend or look. Promoting this one image influences many others to start following it. Even though it is pretty, these images are usually unattainable by the everyday person. This has affected me negatively. I look at myself in the mirror and I start to think about how jealous I am of their bodies or face, and I desperately want what they have. This also leads me into judging others more harshly, since I somehow feel like it would raise my own self-esteem. This can then turn into a vicious cycle that impairs how I see myself as a person and how I see other people. However, the 10th Commandment and Catholic social teachings ground us back to our individuality that God has given us. Catholic social teaching of life and dignity of a human person can be translated to also mean respect for ourselves. We need to respect our own dignity and individuality that God has blessed us with. By doing so, we can also better respect and embrace the differences in others around us. I find when I am more comfortable in myself, it is easier for me to uplift and empower others. By taking small actions like reaffirming myself every day, that beauty and perfection comes in all forms, I feel less envy, and then in turn, I start to love myself more. How do you feel when you compare yourself to others? Whether it be material or mental. Is it a feeling of motivation, or is it a sense of self-degradement? Do you feel like this has ever helped you to grow, or does it knock you down? How does this make you feel? Growing up, I was often taught that this envy should never be a good thing. However, it is inevitable to feel this way, and almost impossible to avoid in this society of jealousy around us. On the bright side, the church is here to help us. The 10th commandment of "one shall not covet thy neighbor's goods" teaches us that there are negative effects to comparing ourselves to others. When I envy others, I often feel a pit in my stomach. It's almost a feeling of self-pity and loathing. Sometimes I even question if that person even deserves it more than I do. All these thoughts cultivate into such a toxic mindset, which leads me into having a negative outlook on life. I feel like I can't turn the bad in my life into good, and that I will never be able to achieve what others have. However, the Catholic Church teaches us that this is never the case. A professor of theology, Megan McKenna, states, "Christianity is not about feeding oneself. Christianity begins with what one does with the leftovers." God teaches us that instead of brewing in jealousy and self-pity, we need to turn the negative, or the leftovers, into more. Catholic social teaching also connects us to the 10th commandment into action within our own life. The Catholic social teaching of solidarity tells us that we are one. We need to be connected with each other and embrace our differences. No more envy, but rather love and empowerment. As a result, we as a whole will gain a better perspective and a positive mindset. This positive mindset has personally changed my life. and hopefully one day it might spread and slowly change the world.